afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to be here to represent Singapore to share with you on the use of ICT in Singapore. But before I do that, let me take the opportunity to introduce 4 other distinguished speakers from the region. First on my list is Mr. David Ong, Chairman of the Board of IHU Foundation in the Philippines. He'll be sharing on how ICT is being used in the Philippines to increase the learning among disadvantaged children over there. Second on my list is Mr. Brian Nehemiah Kakini from Papua New Guinea. He's a university planner with Unitec, Papua New Guinea. Again, he will be sharing with us on how to use ICT to increase learning among disadvantaged children. Third on my list, Dr. Han Jae Chow, President with the National Ilan University in Taipei over here. He will be sharing with us how to use ICT to increase learning among children. Last but not least, Mr. Panut Hadisiswoyo, the founding director of Orangutan Information Center from Indonesia. So, very interesting topic, how to use ICT for environmental protection. So let me begin this afternoon session by sharing with you the use of ICT in preschools in Singapore. But before I do that, let me just give you a little bit of the background on this. And the presentation I have is actually in your handout. And basically I'll share with you the position of the use of ICT in Singapore preschools, and then the history of ICT use in Singapore preschools, the current use of ICT in Singapore preschools, and then subsequently look into the future. What are we supposed to have in Singapore? A little bit of background on the Singapore system first. In Singapore, all our young children are enrolled into either the childcare centers or kindergartens. 99.99% of the children. Although kindergarten education is not compulsory, but 99.99% of our children actually enroll into either one of these. Kindergartens are regulated by the Ministry of Education, whereas the childcare centers are regulated by another ministry, Ministry of Community Development, Youth and Sports. Regarding the use of ICT for young children, the 2 ministries do not dictate any policy pertaining to the use of ICT there. I'm from the Association for Early Childhood Educators Singapore. It is a non-profit organization set up for educators working in both kindergartens and the childcare centers. We come out with a position. And our vision for the ACES, Association for Early Childhood Educators Singapore, is that the early childhood educator is recognized as a professional who makes a difference. And our mission is really to make use of what we know about early childhood, to promote quality programs for young children and their families by providing continuous professional development for early childhood educators. So the early childhood educator profession in Singapore has actually gone through quite a long development. And we come up with a position statement governing the use of ICT in our preschool. And the position statement is actually documented in this statement, Technology and Young Children Ages 3 to 8. If you are interested to know more about this position statement, you can go to our website, www.aeces.org. You can actually download the statement and the details from there. And of course, some of you, I think, are from the education field for older children may not be aware why at this moment we need to actually talk about a position statement. Isn't ICT being widely used in the field of education? Yes, it is for mainstream education, for primary school education, for secondary school, for high school. 100% of our schools are into use of ICT. But for early childhood education, that means children below 6 years old and below, the use of ICT to some extent is still a controversial issue. Whether children at this age should participate in the use of ICT or not. So therefore, I think it is important for us to come up with a position. And the position is that technology is an essential teaching and learning tool for the 21st century, and it should be included in the early childhood curriculum. And the other point is that technology should complement, but does not replace highly valued early childhood activities and materials. What are these highly valued early childhood materials? For example, toys, for example, play, for example, songs, singing, writing, drawing, and all those. Those are very important tools for young children's development. I'm sure in your country as well. So the position of Association for Early Childhood Educators in Singapore is that IT is used now as another additional tool for learning among young children. With that position taken by the association, it is very important to define the role of the early childhood educator. There are a few points regarding this role. The early childhood educator plans and implements learning via technology and integrating technology to the teaching and the learning process. It is not an extension, but it is being actually integrated into the way young children learn. For example, children used to use paper, use pencil, part of the learning process. Now, there is an additional tool of this ICT, of computer, for example, of digital cameras being used now. Is an additional tool available to young children. So the role of the teacher is very, very important. In order to achieve this position, this correct position, the early childhood educator role is important. She must be able to evaluate the software, evaluate the websites, so that it will be, so that these websites and software are suitable for the development of young children, are suitable for the different learning styles. Additionally, the educator, the early childhood educator, need the skill to observe how children interact with the technology and make adaptations to classroom technology integration. Not all technology are suitable for very young children. So the teacher must be smart enough, must be skilled enough to see and to how to make changes in order to actually make it best for the young children. And the early childhood educator promotes collaborative and integrated learning via technology center in the classroom. So we, as I shall share with you later on, we started implementation of a computer program in kindergartens some 18 years ago, in 1992, very early, before the mainstream education in Singapore actually adopted computer learning. Kindergartens already started. But at the time, it was a separate classroom. But now the promotion is talking about integrating to a technology center. So within each classroom, there is a corner, there is a station there with a computer inside there, one or more computers set inside there for children to explore. The early childhood educators select software and internet websites that promote positive social values. Very important. And of course, the early childhood educator ensures that the software and internet website are of interest for the diverse group of children. In Singapore, we are a multi-racial society. We have the Chinese, we have the Malay, we have the Indian, we have other races actually living in Singapore. So therefore, we have to make sure that the kind of material we present, we use for young children is suitable for the diverse group of children coming from different backgrounds. Next on the list, the early childhood educator works with families on the use of technology at home. We believe that for the school to be successful in implement our early childhood education policy, the teacher must work closely with the parents at home. If the parents are doing something else and the teachers are doing something else completely different, then we'll not be able to achieve the synergy in the effort promoted. So we actually advocate our teachers to actually work closely, and with that, we also want to make use of technology to reach out to network with family. Later on, I shall share with you some of the effort actually being implemented. So the recommendation for professional development is this: the early childhood educator is provided with pre-service and post-service training courses on the use of ICT in early childhood. Okay, meaning that before someone becomes a teacher in the kindergarten or childcare center, she would have to go through some rigorous training in the use of ICT. And of course, post-service as well, meaning that on-the-job training to keep the teachers updated on the latest technology available to them. Participate in the courses can be supported. We advocate our ministries to provide funding, okay, for the teachers to be trained in this area. Okay, the early childhood years are very, very important. A good start in the early childhood years will build a solid foundation for the primary school years. So recommendation for personal and professional development opportunities for the teachers themselves. We say the EC educator views the technology as a means for personal and professional growth. Over the years, we have seen this achieving the objective. And technology can be used as a tool to document children's learning, to facilitate professional learning and networking among the different people working in the field as well. A little bit of a history part, very briefly. We started, as I mentioned earlier, started in 1992 as a pilot project in 18 kindergartens of the PCF changed 18 years ago. I'm happy to tell you that I was one of the pioneers to actually start the project back in 1992. And the initial implementation at that time was really, you can remember, I think the sound card. Okay, I mean, it is early years of the sound card, and of course at that time using Apple computers. Okay, the only multimedia platform available at that time. The pilot was so successful that that led to a steady increase in the number of kindergarten using ICT in the subsequent years. The number multiplied. And of course, the number of centers reached 400 in the year 2000. Okay, and from there, the computers were mainly located in the computer lab. At that time, it was actually one computer lab for one kindergarten, and different classes scheduled to go to the computer class for their lessons. And software use were developed locally via a kindergarten developer collaboration. Singapore is a very small nation. Currently, we only have 5 million population. To develop software is going to be very, very expensive. So in order to be able to achieve the software development status, the change of kindergartens, they work very closely with the software development so that more kindergarten children will participate in the program. And in that sense, you will achieve economy of scales.